All right, let's talk about one of the keys to building ridiculously fast websites, Next.js caching. Seriously, if you want to give your users that, wow, this is instant feeling, you've got to understand how this works. So let's dive right in.
You know that feeling, right? You click on one site and it just pops up instantly. Then you go to another and you're just waiting, staring at a white screen. What is the secret sauce that makes that first site so fast? Well, it's not magic, not at all. It's actually a really clever, multi-layered system that's all about storing data in smart places so it can get to the user as fast as humanly possible. And honestly, Next.js is an absolute master at this.
So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with why we even care about caching in the first place. Then we'll follow a request on its journey, starting right at home in the browser, then hopping over to the server, then all the way out to the edge. And finally, we'll see how the whole thing fits together.
Okay, first things first. Why are we going through all this trouble? It all boils down to one simple truth of the web. Speed is everything. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has patience for a slow website.
Just look at the difference here. On the left, an uncached request is this long, painful journey. The user has to go all the way to your server, which then has to stop, think, process everything, and build a response from scratch. It's slow. But look at the right. A cached request is this beautiful little shortcut. The request gets picked up by a nearby cache that already has the answer. It's instant. The difference is, well, it's night and day.
All right, let's start our journey at the very first stop, the one that's closest to home for your users, their own web browser. This is our front line, our first line of defense against slowness.
We call this client-side caching. And the name kind of says it all, right? We're literally storing pieces of your website on the client's, the user's computer. Now, the most important two words here are repeat visits. This is all about making your site feel incredibly fast for people who come back. Think about it like this. Instead of driving all the way back to the library every single time you want to read a book, you just keep it on your desk. It's right there. You can just pick it up, no travel time, zero effort. That's exactly what the browser cache is doing.
So what kind of stuff are we keeping on this desk? Well, things that don't change very often. Your CSS files, your JavaScript, images, fonts, that sort of thing. But it can even include things like API responses. And Next.js is even smart enough to prefetch data for links you might click on, and it stores that in the browser too.
So why does this matter so much? Because when a user comes back, the browser doesn't even have to ask your server for this stuff. It just grabs it locally. And that is a huge win-win. The user gets a blazing fast experience, and your server doesn't have to lift a finger.
Okay, that's great for repeat visitors. But what about that very first visit? Or what about when 10 different people all ask for the same page? For that, we need to go one layer deeper, to the heart of the operation, the Next.js server itself.
This is what we call server-side caching. And here's the key difference. The browser cache is for one person. The server cache is for everyone. It's a shared resource that stops the server from doing the same hard work over and over and over again.
Let's go back to our library. Imagine the librarian sees that everybody is asking for the same hot new bestseller. Instead of running back to the shelves every single time, they just keep a stack of them right on the front counter. So when you ask for it, bam, they hand it right to you. That's your server cache. So Next.js is super smart about this. It does it in a couple of main ways. There's the data cache, which automatically remembers the results from your fetch calls, so you're not constantly bugging your database. And then, even cooler, is the full route cache, which saves the entire ready-to-go HTML of a page. And the best part? A lot of this just works out of the box, but you can totally configure it to control how long things stay cached. And here's the payoff. By cutting out all that repetitive work, you slash your server's response time. This makes your app faster not just for one person, but for everyone. It can even lower your hosting bills and let your app handle way more traffic without breaking a sweat.
Okay, so we're caching on the user's computer and on our server. I mean, how much faster can we possibly get? Well, we can attack the biggest speed bump of all. The actual physical distance data has to travel across the internet. It's time to talk about the edge.
A CDN, or Content Delivery Network, is just a fancy name for a global network of servers. So when you deploy your Next.js app on a platform like Vercel, it doesn't just live in one building somewhere. The CDN automatically copies and caches your site's content in dozens of locations all around the world.
And this is the final piece of our library puzzle. Think about it.
Instead of everyone in the whole city having to drive to the one giant library downtown, they open up smaller, local branches in every neighborhood. And those local branches have copies of all the popular books. That little neighborhood library? That's an edge server.
And that's what this is all about, latency. It means a user in Singapore isn't fetching your website from a server in Ohio. Nope, they're getting it from a CDN server that might be right down the street. We're talking about pure physics here. By cutting down the physical distance, you make things incredibly fast for everyone, no matter where they are on the planet.
So these three layers, the browser, the server, and the edge, they don't work alone. The real power, the real magic happens when they all work together in harmony. So let's put it all together and see what that looks like.
Okay, so a user types in your URL. What happens? First, the system checks the browser cache. Hey, have you seen this before? If the answer is yes, boom, we're done. Instant load. If not, the request goes out to the closest CDN edge server. You got a copy of this? If yes, boom, served. If not, then and only then does it travel all the way to your main server. And even then, the server checks its own memory. Have I built this recently? And only if the answer to all three questions is no, does the server finally do the hard work. And when it does, it sends the page to the user, and on the way back, it populates all those other caches. So the next person to ask has a much faster trip.
So let's just boil this all down. The browser cache? That's for the individual user, making their return visits super fast. The server cache? That's for everybody, saving your server from redoing work. And the CDN cache? That's also for everybody, but it's all about crushing network distance. Put them all together, and you get this incredibly smart, resilient performance strategy built right in.
So by just using Next.js, your app is already going to be really, really fast. You're tackling all the major bottlenecks. But that brings up a really interesting question, doesn't it? Can it be even faster?
And the answer is yes. The next step is moving from fast by default to perfectly tuned. And you do that by exploring the caching configurations Next.js gives you. This is where you get fine-grained control to tell your app exactly how long to cache things and when to get fresh data. This is how you create an application that delivers the absolute best performance possible. And that, right there, is the true art of caching.